Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at something truly mind-bending. We're going to explore this fascinating blueprint of societal control, and it's all derived from author Inianga Omiela's brilliant synthesis of human psychology and institutional architecture. If you've ever felt like you're somehow fighting against your own mind, well, you're absolutely going to want to pay close attention to the concepts we're breaking down today. We're jumping right in with a pretty chilling thought from the legendary psychologist Carl Jung, and this really sets the stage for our entire exploration. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. It's just a profound observation, right? Because what if the things holding you back aren't fate at all? Now, what's really interesting here is the massive paradigm shift this demands. Like, what if your psychological flaws were actually installed by design? Think about that for a second. What if your guilt, your constant worry, that desperate need for approval, what if they aren't just personal accidents or quirks of your personality, but actual structural features deliberately put there by outside forces? To unpack this, let's define our terms using psychologist Wayne Dyer's incredible 1976 framework. He coined this term erroneous zones. Basically, these are learned patterns of thought, things like guilt, worry, approval seeking, that produce chronic misery without any corresponding benefit to you as an individual. They literally just drain you. But here's the twist, and this is where the sociological analysis really kicks in. According to author Inianga Omiela, these psychological erroneous zones are actually the invisible operating system running his concept of the triangular prison. And this prison, it's constructed by three massive institutional walls: tradition, religion, and education. Omiela argues these institutions actively cultivate your erroneous zones because, well, they absolutely need them to function.
Section 1, the mechanics of control. Let's move right along. So let's dive in and see exactly how these institutions manufacture compliance without ever needing a physical cage. It's an incredibly elegant, if kind of unsettling, invisible system. The concept we're looking at here brilliantly illustrates Zone 1, which is the foundational shift required for the whole prison to work. On one side, you have internal authority, where your worth is self-determined. But the prison needs the exact opposite. It needs external authority. It literally needs you to believe your worth is inherited, and that external forces control your feelings. You basically have to outsource your truth to an authority figure.
And once that authority is externalized, institutions install Zone 2, approval seeking. This is the prison's absolute primary lever of behavioral control. When you need an institution's endorsement just to feel valid, they don't even need guards anymore. The inmates police themselves just to secure validation from, say, their family, their pastor, or an exam board. You literally become your own guard.
Section 2, the guilt machine.
To see this operating at scale, let's look at the modern prosperity gospel. The framework identifies this as a perfectly self-sealing guilt machine. Notice how these steps feed right into each other. Step 1. Claim that poverty or hardship is a personal spiritual failure. Step 2, demand institutional financial investment, like, more tithing, as the remedy. And step 3, frame any doubt about the system as a spiritual blockage. It's this closed loop where the only remedy for feeling inadequate is to enrich the institution even further.
The contrast here is just staggering. The institution actively frames structural economic realities, we're talking unfair wage arrangements or political disenfranchisement, as personal spiritual failures, like insufficient faith or a lack of giving. By doing this, it completely transforms real-world systemic problems into renewable, highly profitable guilt.
So the really crucial point here is that this guilt isn't just kept private, it's weaponized publicly. The social dimension of guilt multiplies its force enormously. It gets heavily reinforced through choreographed offerings and public testimonies, which basically makes you fear both divine wrath and communal disapproval at the exact same time. It's a remarkably brilliant psychological trap.
Section 3, the prison's toolkit. Let's look at the rest of the arsenal.
Because beyond just guilt, there are several other erroneous zones that serve as the rest of the prison psychological toolkit. Breaking this down, each zone has a highly specific institutional function. Manufactured worry occupies your mental bandwidth, like that constant gnawing fear of failing exams, so you literally don't have the energy to question the system. The inherited I am makes arbitrary labels feel like your core identity, locking you right in place. And my personal favorite term, masturbation, the tyranny of the should, well, that disguises external rules as internal values. You might think, I should unconditionally defer to elders is your own conscience speaking, but actually, scratch that, it's just installed software.
And to completely seal the exits, the system deploys the fear of the unknown. The institution ensures you never test these boundaries by painting the unknown, like leaving a strict community or questioning a rigid tradition, as a totally catastrophic heresy or total failure. Quite simply, the prison makes the exit look so much worse than the cage.
Section 4. Reclaiming internal authority.
Okay, so how do we actually break this conditioning? Omiela provides some really specific diagnostic questions to evaluate the institutions in our lives. Here's the first one. Does this practice help the people who engage in it become more fully themselves? Like, does a tradition expand its people, making them more capable and loving? Or does it merely demand blind compliance? A living tradition expands you. A captured tradition diminishes you.
The second really important question to ask is, can this tradition be honestly examined without the examination itself being defined as a violation? If asking a simple, honest question triggers immediate accusations of disrespect or faithlessness, the author notes that you're definitely dealing with a fragile, captured tradition. Real truth can always withstand your questions.
The third question just bluntly addresses the financial reality. Who benefits materially from the tradition's maintenance in its current form? A genuine tradition serves the community broadly, right? But a captured tradition, that funnels money, power, and benefits to a very specific hierarchy. Basically, follow the money. It'll show you exactly which kind of tradition you have.
Omiela points out that true spiritual maturity looks remarkably like what Dyer called internal authority. Consider the signs of faith without chains. It trusts its own judgment over external authority. And ironically, it relates closely to founding figures, people like Moses, Jesus, or Muhammad, who actually defied the rigid institutions of their own time. It distinguishes genuine spiritual wisdom from institutional self-interest, and it replaces unexamined certainty with honest curiosity.
Now, this framework applies perfectly to education as well, through a concept called epistemic internalization. True education dismantles the old model where you're just this empty vessel waiting to be filled with facts. Instead, it teaches you that you are the active participant in constructing understanding. You actually learn to critically question who produced the information and why they produced it.
Section 5. The door is open.
As we wrap up this explainer, let's look at the grand synthesis. How do we put all of this together to actually break free? Omiela's work combines two crucial approaches. First, we have structural analysis, understanding the history, economics, and sociology of these institutions. That's essentially seeing the cage. But then we have psychological work, actively dismantling those installed erroneous knowns and reclaiming your self-trust. That is opening the door. You absolutely need both. Sociology shows you the bars, but doing the psychological work is what actually lets you walk out.
The really incredible news here is that these erroneous zones aren't permanently you. As this beautiful quote says, the fire is what you were before the prison finished its work on you. These flaws are just installed software that can be uninstalled, revealing the original fire of your true capable self. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to examine in your own life as you walk away from the blueprint today. Which of your deeply held flaws were actually installed by an institution just to keep you in the cage? Take some time to really think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning and keep learning.